We're sitting around the dining table, 10 of us, maybe more. Candles flicker between the dishes, laughter echoes from the far end, and the roast chicken sits untouched in front of me. It's supposed to be a celebration, a birthday. Not mine, of course, they never bother with mine anymore. My daughter reaches across the table pretending to grab a napkin. Her hand brushes mine, but instead of a napkin, she slips me a folded piece of paper, smooth tight, like it's been gripped hard. She doesn't look at me. She keeps talking to her cousin, laughing like nothing's happened. I glance down. My fingers unfold it beneath the table. Call 911. Don't let anyone see. My throat closes. I don't move. I don't breathe. I stare at the words like they might disappear if I blink. I lift my eyes, slowly searching her face, but she's already turned away, sipping from her glass. Everyone is eating, joking, passing dishes. No one notices me. I look at my husband, ex-husband, really, though he still sits at the head of the table like a king. He's laughing at something his new wife said. She dabs her lips with a linen napkin, leans into him like she owns the room. My son is scrolling on his phone, nodding, bored. My youngest grandson is flicking peas at the dog, and me, I'm invisible. I fold the note again, slip it into my sweater pocket. I force my hand to reach for a spoon, stir the potatoes, smile. But inside my heart is pounding. What did she mean? What am I not seeing? Then I feel it, a shift in the air, barely noticeable, like a thread being pulled. My ex stops laughing for half a second. His new wife stiffens just slightly. My daughter's voice grows louder, more animated, as if to cover something up. And then the music stops. The pianist, my nephew, halts mid-chord, like his fingers forgot the next note. There's an awkward beat of silence. Someone coughs. Then he starts again, a different melody, lighter. But it's too late. I already heard the silence. And in that silence, something snapped. They think I'm soft. They think I don't see. They think I'll stay quiet like always. But this time, they're wrong. I used to think silence was a virtue, that if I kept my head down, did my part, and loved my family enough, they would see me. They would know. But years passed, and silence became something else entirely. I met my husband when I was barely old enough to vote. He was charming in that loud, commanding way. People listened when he spoke, and when I was beside him, I didn't mind not speaking. I thought it meant we balanced each other out. I let him lead. He liked that. So did everyone else. After the children came, I stopped working. It's better for the kids, he said. They need their mother. And I agreed. I cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, made costumes for school plays, stayed up sewing buttons, measuring fevers. I built the quiet foundation the whole family stood on, and no one noticed. They praised him. What a hard-working man, they said. What a provider. And me, I was background noise. Useful, but not seen. When my daughter got her first job, she didn't tell me. She told her father. When my son broke his arm, I was the one who sat by the hospital bed all night, but he only thanked his uncle for driving him to the ER. It became a pattern. I was always there, always doing, but never credited, never acknowledged. I remember one year on my birthday they handed me a neatly wrapped gift. I opened it to find a mop and bucket. So you don't have to use the old ones anymore, my daughter-in-law said, laughing. You like cleaning, right? I smiled. I always smiled. Another time I spent 4 hours cooking a full dinner roast, 3 sides dessert from scratch. They all showed up, ate, and left their plates in the sink. Not a single thank you, just empty chairs and dirty dishes. My husband didn't even notice I hadn't sat down to eat. When he remarried, barely 6 months after our divorce, he invited the children to the ceremony. I wasn't told. I found out from a photo someone tagged online. There they were, smiling under white balloons, holding champagne. My daughter wore a pale blue dress I had altered for her the month before. She didn't think to tell me why she needed it. Still, I stayed polite. Still, I showed up to birthdays, to dinners, to family gatherings. I brought gifts. I held my tongue. Even when my daughter-in-law changed the combination to the family safe and said, "It's for security," I said nothing. Even when she laughed about how I didn't need to know what was inside because you're not really involved in finances, right? I smiled. I let them believe I was small, that I didn't understand, that I was too soft, too slow, too sentimental. They started talking over me at dinner, ignoring my suggestions, planning holidays without me. I was welcome, sure, as long as I cooked or babysat or cleaned up afterward. But no one asked what I wanted. No one cared if I was tired or lonely or just fading. I had become invisible, not all at once, but slowly, like fog swallowing a road. And somewhere along the way, I started to believe them. Maybe I really didn't matter. Maybe silence was all I had left. Until that dinner, until that note, until my daughter, for the first time in years, reached for me. It started with the car. Not just any car, my car. Or at least the one my husband and I bought together when the kids were still in school. It was old now, sure, but it still ran like a dream. He used to wash it every Sunday, kept the seats clean, polished the dashboard. And after he passed, I kept it going, drove it to the grocery store, took it through quiet streets when I couldn't sleep. It smelled like him. It held his jacket. His sunglasses were still in the glove box. That car was the last thing that felt like ours. One morning, I went out to the driveway, and it was gone. I thought it had been stolen. I panicked. I called my son. He picked up casual as ever. "Oh yeah, I meant to tell you. I sold it." My heart stopped. "You..." "What?" The car, he said, like I was the one being difficult. "It was just sitting there. You barely drive anymore. I figured you wouldn't mind." He didn't ask. He didn't tell me. He just took it like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. I tried to keep my voice calm. "That car had your father's mum," he interrupted. "It was just a car. Don't get emotional." I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat at the edge of my bed, hands folded in my lap, and stared at the floor. There was something final about it. Like they'd closed a door on me, locked it from the outside. Like I was no longer part of this family in any real way. Just a ghost drifting through their lives. Only useful when they needed something. The next day, I walked into the living room. My daughter-in-law and her sister were sorting through old boxes. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "Just decluttering." "You have so much stuff, we figured we'd help." "Oh, and we moved your winter coats into the garage. More space for the kids' things." The garage. Damp. Cold. Filled with spider webs. That's where my things went. That night, I found my wedding album in a laundry basket. My husband's military medals shoved into a plastic bag. A framed photo of the kids when they were still small and smiling turned upside down in a drawer. I wasn't even angry. Just hollow. Then came the dinner. A family gathering. Everyone was there. The laughter was loud. The food was good. But when I sat down at the end of the table, no one looked up. I wasn't introduced to the new girlfriend. No one passed me the bread. They talked over me, around me, as if I had vanished. Midway through the meal, my son stood and raised his glass. "To Mom," he said. I blinked, surprised. Who's always been there for us? Who gave up everything to take care of the family? For a second, my heart lifted. He smiled. "So we've decided as a family to make sure she's taken care of." There were nods, Clinks of glasses, smiles. We've found a lovely place for her, near the park. Great staff. She won't have to worry about anything anymore. I froze. A place. An assisted living facility. They were sending me away. I looked around. No one met my eyes. Not my daughter. Not my son-in-law. Not even my granddaughter who used to sit in my lap and braid my hair. I said nothing. I simply stood, picked up my napkin, folded it, placed it on the table, and smiled. That was the last time they saw me that way. They thought they were doing me a kindness, that they were managing me like a fragile vase on a shelf too high to reach. But in that moment, something shifted. I remembered something my husband once told me. Years ago, after a hard day, he had held my face and whispered, "They don't know who you really are, but I do." And suddenly I did too. After that dinner, I went home quietly. Not a single word of protest, not even a raised eyebrow. I hugged my granddaughter goodbye. I thanked my daughter-in-law for the meal, and I left like a guest who knew she had overstayed her welcome. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty space where the car used to be, where my husband used to sit on Sunday mornings with coffee in hand going over paperwork I never looked at. Because I trusted him. Because he told me you don't have to worry about this now, but one day you will, and you'll know what to do. At 3 a.m., I opened the top drawer of his desk, the one no one ever bothered with. Inside was a small leather envelope with my name in his handwriting, a key, a letter, and a document with the seal of the bank we used for years. The letter was short. If you're reading this, it means they've forgotten who you are. But I haven't. Go to the vault, take what's yours, and don't let them turn you into a shadow. I hadn't seen those words in over a decade. I put on a coat, took the key, and walked down our quiet street just as the sun began to rise. I didn't even feel the cold. The bank opened at 9. I was the first in line. I told the clerk my name and handed her the key. She blinked, then looked again, and suddenly her expression changed. "Oh," she said. "One moment, ma'am. Let me get the manager." The manager, a tall man in a grey suit, came out personally and led me down a hallway I had never seen before. He opened a private room. Inside was a small vault, and when he unlocked it, I gasped. Files, folders, investment statements, real estate documents, multiple accounts not in both our names, but in mine alone. My husband had been preparing this quietly for years. There was a letter from the attorney, a will, a list of instructions meticulous and precise. And then there was the deed to the house. In my name. Everything they thought they controlled, they didn't. The car they sold. Still registered to me. The house they lived in mine. The investments they handled behind my back. They had no legal authority. The assisted living they arranged, I could buy the entire facility and still have money left. I didn't feel joy or revenge, just stillness. For the first time in months, I felt my heartbeat slow, my spine straighten, my breath return to me. I wasn't lost, I wasn't helpless. I was quiet, and that had made them think I was weak. That week, I met with a lawyer, a kind woman in her 40s, who looked at the papers and blinked twice. "You're quite the executor," she said. "I was someone's wife," I replied softly. "He believed in me more than I ever did." She smiled. "He knew exactly who you were. And now, so do I." We went through every document, every account, every property. And quietly, very quietly, I took control of everything that had been mine all along. I didn't confront my family. Not yet. I let them send their follow-up emails about the lovely new room with a view. I let my daughter drop off pamphlets about bingo nights and organized wellness walks. I smiled. I thanked them. I told them I was thinking it over. But in the background, the papers were shifting. The house was transferred to a private trust with me as the sole trustee. The investments were moved. The retirement fund they didn't even know existed was restructured. And every password, every code, every document locked away where only I could reach. A week later, I walked into the same bank again. The same manager greeted me. But this time he stood up when I entered. "Madam," he said, holding the door open. "Just here to update some information," I said. He nodded. "Everything's ready. And thank you for your service." It wasn't until I stepped into my car, the new one I'd quietly purchased that morning, that I realized what he meant. Not my husband's service. Mine. He recognized me, and it hit me like a warm wave somewhere along the way. I'd become invisible to the people closest to me, but never to the ones who actually looked. 3 weeks later, they invited me to dinner. A casual catch-up, my daughter-in-law said on the phone. "We want to see how you're doing. Maybe show you around the facility again." Facility. That word again. I said yes. I told them I'd bring dessert. The house looked the same. Immaculate. Overly perfect, like everything had been scrubbed down to hide something underneath. They greeted me at the door like a guest, not like a mother. Not like the woman who raised the man now asking me to take it easy and consider other living arrangements. I handed over the pie I'd bought, sat down at the dinner table and listened. They talked about property taxes, rising costs, how things were getting complicated with shared ownership, how it made sense financially to move me into a care home, maybe sell the house for the family's good. I nodded. I stirred my tea. I didn't say a word. Then the doorbell rang. My daughter-in-law frowned. "Are we expecting someone?" "No," my son said. I didn't look up. I sipped my tea. The door opened. Footsteps. A man's voice. "Good evening. I'm from Whitmore and Green Law. I believe you were notified about this meeting." Panic flickered across my son's face. "I know we weren't. What's this about?" The lawyer walked in calmly, placed a folder on the table, and opened it with a soft click. "These are the documents confirming the full transfer of assets. The House 3 accounts and all affiliated property are under the legal ownership of the trustee seated at this table." He turned slightly. That would be her. He didn't say my name, just her. Like it was obvious. Like they should have known all along. My daughter-in-law dropped her fork. My son's jaw tightened. "Mom, what? What is this?" I looked at him. No anger, no triumph, just stillness. "It's mine," I said. "No more. Just that. It's mine." He looked at the lawyer. "There must be a mistake." "There is no mistake," the lawyer replied. "The will was filed. The trust has been active for years. Your father's final letter designated her as the sole executor and beneficiary." There was silence. Not awkward. Not confused. Absolute. Like a curtain dropping. My granddaughter looked between us all, sensing something deeper than she could understand. My son cleared his throat. You should have told us?" I smiled. "You should have asked." My daughter-in-law whispered something I couldn't hear. I didn't ask her to repeat it. The lawyer closed the folder. "We'll leave copies for your records. But as of this moment, any decisions regarding this house or any financial assets are not yours to make." He turned to me. "Shall we?" I stood up slowly, pushed my chair in, then looked at them one last time. They weren't villains. They were just blind. Blinded by years of thinking silence meant submission. That age meant irrelevance. That love meant obedience. I walked to the door. No hugs, no tears, but as I reached for the handle, I said almost as an afterthought, I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I just finally remembered who I am. Then I left. The next day, movers came. Not to move me out, but to move them. The house was cleaned, room by room. The papers signed. The locks changed. I didn't gloat. I didn't post about it. I didn't brag. I just sat on the back porch with a cup of tea. The same place my husband used to sit. The sun hit the railing just like it always had. But this time it was quiet in the way I liked. Not empty. Not abandoned. Just peaceful. Like a queen returning to her castle. No trumpets. No applause. Just silence, the kind that means no one can take anything away from you anymore. They didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Not out of rage, but confusion, as if they were still waiting for it all to be reversed, for me to knock on their door and say I made a mistake, that I'd give it back, that I'd go quietly. But I didn't. And that silence, it made them nervous. On the 17th day, my son texted me. Hi, Mom. Hope you're okay. Can we talk sometime soon? I read it. Then left it on read. The next day I got flowers. No card. Just lilies, the kind I used to keep in the kitchen. Then came the phone calls. Short at first. Hi, Mum, just checking in. Then longer. We were thinking of dropping by. We miss you. The kids miss you. But I didn't miss the way they treated me. They missed the version of me who never said no. The one who smiled and accepted whatever they decided. That woman didn't live here anymore. A week later, my daughter-in-law sent a message. We wanted to apologize. Maybe we got carried away. We didn't mean to push you out. Then she added almost casually, do you still have the login for the family account? There's an issue with the taxes. Ah, there it was, wrapped in soft words and a ribbon of concern. A request, a reach, a test. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my attorney and made sure all future communication about accounts went through his office. I wasn't being cruel. I was protecting myself. Once people show you who they are, you believe them. I saw my granddaughter at the grocery store one morning. She spotted me before I saw her, ran up and hugged me without a word. I hugged her back. She whispered, I miss you. I smiled. I miss you too. Then her mum came around the corner, saw me froze, tried to smile. I nodded politely. Take care of her. She nodded back, but her eyes were unsure, maybe scared, maybe realizing she no longer held power in this quiet war. My son tried one more time. He came by the house unannounced, stood at the front gate like a boy who'd gotten lost on his way home. I didn't know he said. I opened the gate but didn't invite him in. You never asked, I replied. He shifted awkwardly. Can we try again? I looked at him. For a long time. He was older now, stressed, a little grey at the edges. But in that moment, I didn't see my little boy. I saw a man who had stood by while others erased me. And only now, in the aftermath, realized what he'd done. I'm not angry, I told him, but I'm not the same. He nodded, quietly, respectfully, then turned around and left. That was enough. Not reconciliation, not redemption, just recognition. They didn't shout anymore. They didn't demand. They asked. They waited. Sometimes that's all you want. Not control, not revenge, just the space to be seen, to be heard, to decide who gets close and who stays at the gate. These days, I wake up before the sun, not because I have to, but because I like the quiet. I make one strong cup of black coffee sit by the window and let the silence wrap around me like a coat I never knew I needed. There's no rush anymore. No errands I didn't choose. No one calling my name just to ask for something. The house I moved into isn't big. It doesn't have a grand staircase or fancy appliances, but it has windows that let in the morning light, a small porch where I grow herbs, a study with just enough room for a desk and a lamp, and peace, endless, unbroken peace. I work from that study a few hours a day, nothing complicated. I advise a few non-profits, answer emails, make calls when I feel like it. Nothing like before, but enough to remind myself my mind is still sharp and I still matter. Sometimes a package arrives, a thank you note from a young woman starting her career, a donation receipt in my name, a handwritten card that simply says, "You helped more than you know." They don't know the whole story. They don't need to. They see me now not as someone's mother or wife or the woman who made the pies every Thanksgiving. Just me. Every now and then I get a text from my son. He doesn't ask for anything anymore. Sometimes he just sends a photo of his kids, a drawing they made, a picture of a sunrise from their porch. I always reply, but I don't fill in the silence with more than necessary. Some days I miss them, but I don't miss who I had to become to be accepted by them. I kept shrinking until I vanished. Now I expand. I read again. I walk alone without fear. I go to the library and lose hours in the poetry section. I started journaling too, not for anyone else, just for me. There's a quote I once underlined in a book when they wouldn't let me sit at their table. I built my own house and made sure the chairs were soft. That's what I did, not out of spite, not even out of anger. But because I realized I was never meant to beg for a place. Now, when I think of that family dinner, the moment my daughter slipped me that note, the weight of it in my hand, I don't feel hurt anymore. I feel grateful. Because that moment cracked everything wide open. And when something breaks, you finally get to decide what's worth rebuilding.